Good morning. Now, when we see a weather system that is literally all over the place, throwing surprises left and right, and we consistently see one man beating the odds and re-emerging at the front of the fleet, now already for the third time, that, I guess, is some real skill. So Jean Le Cam does it again with his boat Yes We Can, and finds himself this morning again at the head of the fleet. I take my hat off, chapeau. That is some really awesome navigating that Jean is doing. Very interesting day yesterday. Really looked like some of the, that a small offshoot of the foiling fleet was going to be able to, really put the hammer down and perhaps build up a lead. But this wouldn't be the Vendee Globe if there weren't a lot of surprises left. And we saw the weather predictions again fail in a major way, surprising many of the fleet. I also heard a lot of people in the virtual race being very surprised that this weather system basically kind of split in two, creating a bit of a doldrum in the middle, catching a lot of the boats off guard, and also catching several of the foilers in the fleet, Hugo Boss, Apiva, and several others, that basically suddenly got stuck in some areas with just not much wind left, destroying their chances to really build up that lead and more or less bringing the fleet together again this morning. So let's take a look at the leaderboard. Oh, wait a minute. You thought I forgot, didn't you? That's part of why you came here. Let's be honest. So if you got something, yeah, 3, 2, 1, here we go. By the way, tea is also fine, eh? Some people commented on that, but tea is also totally good. Okay, let's get back to the leaderboard. Okay, so here we are at the leaderboard again with the current situation. Good to talk actually for a minute about all the breakages that we had. This morning, Sebastian Deschamaux had some very big problems with the attachment of his J2 or J3, and I heard that there was also a problem with his lazy jack with his booms, lazy jack with his boom. So he turned around this morning. I was wondering if he was maybe also going back, but it seems that he's on track again now. So hopefully he was able to fix what needed fixing and is now back in the race. But of course, very sad to see yesterday that Charal for now is heading back to La Sable. Not to worry though, he should be able to get back there and fix whatever needs fixing and still be able to get on his way, as the starting line is open for 10 days. So they may cut it quite close, but I think that ultimately he will be back in the race. So that at least is somewhat comforting. And of course we have also here Art at Finetris, finally on its way after the initial breakage at the start, and making its way to Cape Finisterre and probably going to be getting closer and closer to join the fleet soon. At least he has no bad weather in the way, so he can keep on sailing. Then when we look at the front of the pack, we see that group that kind of split off yesterday. So that was Hugo Boss, PRB, we have Apiva, and we have Linked Out. Those four kind of initially broke off, had some good wind, but that kind of fell apart. And Jean Le Cam, together with Omiya, took the lead again. We will see how long that will last though, because as you can see, especially Alex has found the wind again and is doing a steady 17 knots, while the rest is going quite a bit slower, still making its way into that system. So looks like Alex probably is going to be able to, if this holds true, might still be able to gather a real lead out of this, but I guess we'll see. And both Jean and Benjamin here are both very well positioned also to keep going. So these 7 boats here are definitely in position to keep in the lead, let's say. And as far as weather goes, we see that the prediction once again changed quite a bit. So now all of a sudden we have some doldrums around the Cape here, the islands, that weren't there yet so substantially yesterday, meaning that the fleet is now around here and is going to have to make their way down towards the south a little bit more, and are probably going to go underneath the islands here to then make their way more west. So let's browse forward a little bit, see what's going to happen throughout the rest of the day. Yeah, so should be okay. We're looking at 10 o'clock in the evening now. Yeah, we see the real development of some areas with not so much wind, pretty much going to, blanketly hit the fleet. So everybody's going to be affected by that at some point. And yeah, just hoping that they'll be able to make it through before this band here opens up into a full-on doldrum. But yeah, it will be tough with only 1 day of racing time. Good odds that some of them will get stuck in that, and that maybe this is early morning tomorrow morning. Yeah, we'll see. Well, if they make it through here, so into the actual top of the tropical storm Tetha system, then they should be good. But of course, all have to be careful not to get too close to the storm, because the wind here, that's all fine, but you really don't want to be sucked in there. So yeah, we'll see how that will develop. Looking at a possible track for today. So right now the fleet is here. Then as the weather progresses, they'll make their way down through the band here, hopefully before it really breaks up. But as you can already see, we got quite some light air zones in here, so that might take a while. And if they can make it through, so let's say that by the end of the day, at least some of the fleet might have made it into the green patch of wind on the west of that breakup here, then we'll hopefully see them being able to keep carrying that around tomorrow and really make their way west. And from then on, it should be pretty smooth sailing until they made their way completely around Tetha. Now this is the prediction for tomorrow. They're not going to be able to make it this far, of course, but let's see what the prediction says about how this is going to develop now. Yes, so this is Saturday. Yeah, so unlike the prediction yesterday, we do see that when there was not so much doldrums around in the prediction yesterday, that the prediction for a lot of areas with not so much wind has been updated a bit and seems to be showing a lot more doldrum action there. So looks like the way around Tetha is going to be all good, but once they get down here, probably there's going to be some areas to navigate again with not so much wind. So I guess that's what we're looking forward to in the next few days. And that brings us to Storm Tetha. So once the racers get actually into the Tetha system, we get an interesting tactical choice, which is a bit similar to the choice that the racers have to make when they get into the Southern Ocean, where generally the more towards the pole you go, the more wind you get, but also the higher, of course, the risk of ice, etc. That's why we have an ice exclusion zone. But with a tropical storm like this, in many ways, it kind of works the same. So with this, of course, the closer you get to the eye of the storm, the more wind you're going to get. But also the more weather you're going to get, the more waves you're going to get. And so similar to the situation in the Southern Ocean with Antarctica, with this storm, the question for all of the sailors is going to be, how close do you get? Where do you draw your course? And will some of the sailors maybe, risk it a bit more to get more wind? Or will they hang back a little bit? So that'll be also very interesting to see, especially since we're still in an area here which, we already have several breakages in the last few days. At least one Charal by a UFO, so something unidentified in the water that he hit. We still don't know, what it was. But that risk is still very much alive, of course, in this part of the ocean where the race is happening now. Now let's also talk about breakages, that's because I'm getting quite a bit of questions about that. How is it possible that even though the race is underway for just a few days, see who in the fleet so will take the most risk? I mean, Charal literally the most turn back, and who will hang back more. I think it's very interesting to see also had to abandon and is repaired and is now on its way again. We're seeing, different breakages throughout the fleet. So these are, multi-million-dollar boats, right? I mean, how is it possible that so many of them seem to be having technical problems right from the start? And I thought it would be kind of interesting, especially for those of you who maybe don't sail themselves, to get a little bit more insight into why it is that even on this super high-tech, brand new, very well-maintained machines, stuff tends to break so often and so fast. And so the best way to kind of wrap your head around what happens in these races is shaking. Think of a cupboard or any like a table or something like that you have in your own house. Maybe something from IKEA that you put together yourself. And imagine just putting your hands on it like I'm doing on the table here and just shaking it. But then imagine just keep shaking it hard, soft again for a day or 2 days or 3 days. You would immediately imagine some of the bolts coming loose or some weak spots starting to give at some point. Pick up any cupboard in your house, no matter how well it's screwed together, and just keep wiggling it a bit, shaking it a little bit, and pretty soon you'll feel that you have the strength, or that you will find kind of the frequency to break it, where things start to bend. And so the thing that really wreaks havoc with everything ultimately is the vibration. It's the shaking. There's the salt, there's the sun, there's all these other damaging things coming together when you're at sea. But the salt, the sun, and everything, that's painful, but that's generally not going to break your boat. You can rinse the salt off. The sun damages sails and laminates and stuff, but that takes time. It's happening all the time, but that takes much longer than the race to really do real damage. But the shaking, the vibration, it loosens bolts, it cracks laminates, it rips any glues or anything slowly apart. It just consistently low stress, high stress, banging, and sooner or later, everything just comes apart. A good way to imagine these boats going, and one of the tasks for the captain, let's say, for the skipper on board, is you have this big shaking cupboard, let's say, that you screwed and glued together as well as you could, but you're putting it in an environment where it's just constantly, very violently being shaked and slammed. And all that they basically have to do consistently is look at what damage it's doing and prevent it from going too far, because it's always going to do damage. Some screws are going to come loose. Some laminates are going to split. There's always something that's going to happen, and it is surprising how it happens. I've seen it on my own boat also several times, where in the beginning of the season, you're tightening all the bolts, you're making sure everything is stuck, and 3-4 weeks later, I'm doing a rig check, and I just see that an important bolt has come loose a little bit, and it's it's mind-boggling to think that you tighten this, you know, with an appliance or whatever to make sure that it's locked, and sometimes so tight that you know, with your own hands couldn't, you know, screw something loose like that. But just the continuous shaking and slamming of, you know, the boat's movement, eventually that's enough to loosen any bolt, to, you know, crack any connection between two parts if it just keeps on going long enough or intense enough. And so that's the real reason, apart from hitting objects in the water, of course, that on all of these boats, eventually something is always going to break. So I hope that puts to rest that question for you guys, and you have a bit more an understanding of why this type of things keep happening and will keep happening throughout the race. So I guess that's all we have time for this morning. I have to run out the door now off to Luxembourg while I edit in the car. So I hope I will upload this in time as always today, but don't be surprised if it's maybe a little bit later today. We'll see how it goes, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Thank you again for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, go to the website and become a backer, seawolvestv.com, and I'll see you all tomorrow.